Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at something that I hope is going to be turned out like a really fun tag, and I'm going to call it Tarot Cocktails. So this idea came to me after I visited and had a great time at the Three of Cups, which is a bar on number 53 in Hajj Lane in Singapore. And basically the owner is Shamini. She is really interested and she's a tarot collector and she's a tarot lover. And when it came to her as an idea to open a bar, she also thought it would have been fun to relate the cocktails to, for example, major arcanas and minor arcanas of the tarot. And what I thought, it was, why not stop in there? I mean, it would be a fun idea to think about tarot decks and oracle decks combinations like a major and minor ingredient on a cocktail. So I thought, okay, what's a cocktail? Basically, a cocktail has a part of alcohol. It could be different alcohols, but basically there's always alcohol and a mixer. And therefore, I think that somehow we can also identify that in the same way we look at tarot and oracle decks when we look at a combination or a pairing. So the alcohol ingredient for me is always referred to the tarot decks because they are the ones that give you the leading, let's say, the lead on the interpretation of the cards. And the oracle decks could be the mixers because oracle decks can actually pair up with different tarot decks, like sometimes mixers do. But let's have a look at the first one. I've got a list of 6, 7, I think, of some of my favorite cocktails. And I hope that you people, if you like it, please pick it up as a VR. It will be so much fun to see your choices as well. And let me know in the comments below if you think that, you know, I've been missing something, or if you think that some of these are really cool combination. By the way, you'll probably notice that I have a really gorgeous henna. I had it done here in Bangkok in Khao San Road yesterday by a fantastic artist named Poi, P-O-I, and he's got his stall where he does all sorts of henna tattoos in front of a bar called the Here Bar. So if you come to Bangkok, if you're in Bangkok, go to Khao San Road, look for the Here Bar, and in front of it you'll see Poi, and ask for him, because this was absolutely, as you can tell, this is absolutely amazing. I really love the design. The artwork is absolutely fantastic. And if you don't know this, I actually really love henna tattoos. I get it done anytime I can. I'm fortunate because I don't have any skin reaction to the ingredients. So I don't get, my skin doesn't get irritated or anything. I know that it might be a problem for some people, but the ingredients used in this case were absolutely fine, and I'm really loving this. But let's get into the tarot cocktail. So the first one I want to show you is the whiskey sour. Let's talk about the whiskey sour. So this whiskey sour is made out of bourbon whiskey, a dash egg white, fresh lemon juice, and sweet syrup. To me, the whiskey sour is strong. It's got a really strong taste, but it's also got a little of a pinch of sweetness, and therefore that's why I chose these two. So the Barbara Walker Tarot and the Oracle Novice Witches. Let's have a look at how they pair up together. I've actually shown this combo already in, I don't even remember which one of my videos anymore because when you're on holiday, time flies, and you know, it just so happens that I film things in a different order, and therefore sometimes, you know, maybe I haven't even posted that video in which I'm showing you this combination. I don't know. Apologies if I haven't, or if you've seen it already, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is absolutely fantastic. By the way, this oracle deck, the Oracle of Novice Witches, is absolutely great. I absolutely love it. I love using it with the Barbara Walker Tarot, because the Barbara Walker, if you're not familiar with it, it's a very, how should I say, it's like a punch in the face. It's a very strong tarot deck. I mean, it really tells you things not the way you need to hear them, but the way they really are. So in some cases, it can be a little bit like, you know, if when you drink straight whiskey, like to me, that's really a bit too much. And so that's why I really like whiskey sour. As a matter of fact, my favorite kind of whiskey sour is pisco sour, and I had the privilege of drinking it in one of the best restaurants in Machu Picchu, because pisco sour obviously is made with local ingredients, and pisco is a local alcohol, and I'm afraid to admit that I got really drunk on that because of the altitude. Yeah, I keep on telling myself that it was because of the altitude, but it was probably because I had 3 in a row. I really liked it so much that, you know, I just couldn't resist. But whiskey sour is, you know, a really valid alternative. As you can see, these two decks really pair up well together. They have this kind of conversation that it's not just based on the common color palette, for example, on the fact that they have very similar setting on the borders. So you've got, you know, wider borders on the top and thinner on the sides, but you also have this kind of atmosphere. You have the punch given by the whiskey taste of the Barbara Walker Tarot, which is actually softened by the sweetness of the artwork and also the color palette of the Oracle of the Novice Witches. Now, this oracle is relatively new. It's been published by US Games. As always, I make sure to put the link to this deck in the description box below, just in case you want to grab a copy. I really do believe that these two have a great conversation together. What I really like also about this oracle deck is that it always gives you the name of this, you know, novice witches. To me, novice witches, I don't think Merlin was a novice, but it's the fact that we're talking about the occult, you know, and prominent and you know, celebrities, figures in the occult. And it also associates with the personality of, for example, Baba Yaga. I love that it's associated with life cycle. Because yes, the Baba Yaga, if you watch John Wick and if you watch my channel, you know that I have a major crush on John Wick. Like, major. I think I watched those movies at least 4 times each. Seriously, I cannot stop watching it. It's one of those movies that I keep on watching over and over and over again. I just love it. And I really like that the Baba Yaga is associated with the life cycle, because even though there's a lot of, you know, revenge and justice associated with the Baba Yaga, there's also a kind of rebirth. There's also a kind of restart, a new beginning. And so I really, really appreciate that. And then we've got some alchemy related cards as well, which is always very interesting. And I do believe that if you pay attention to the keywords that come out from the Barbara Walker Tarot, and you associate them with the keywords that you can also find in the Oracle deck, you really have a nice conversation going on. And that's what I really appreciate in a tarot and oracle combo. So this to me is the whiskey sour, and it's the Barbara Walker Tarot paired up with the Oracle of Novice Witches. The next cocktail we're going to talk about is the Bellini. So Bellini is an Italian cocktail, so you know, it's very dear to my heart. And it's made out of Prosecco, which is an Italian white sparkling wine, and fresh peach puree. And because of this, I think that it reminds me a little bit of the sweet and innocent taste of youth, together with a bit of spark. And the reason why I've chosen these two decks is because I really do believe that this is the kind of association that the combination of these two decks will make you think of. So we've got the Wings of Wisdom as an oracle and the Disorder Tarot of Innocence when it comes to the tarot deck. Let's have a look at how these two pair together. Now again, I think I may have shown these two together again. Again, apologies about that. It's as I said, It's not really easy to keep track of what I'm showing you. It's also because some of these decks I've actually bought in where was I? In Singapore, and some others I bought them in Bangkok, but I'm filming this from Bangkok, and therefore, you know, I have to remember which ones I bought where is not an easy task for me. It's also because the days are all kind of jumbled up together. But let's have a look. So what I really like about this combination is the fact that you actually feel this innocence that is at the base of the tarot deck, the tarot of it's called the Zoda, because the author wanted to talk about the fact that nowadays we live in an era of disorder. And what is this disorder? It's the fact that we stopped being in tune with nature, and we stopped acting according to our basic needs. And therefore we just follow whatever the latest trends are. And that obviously creates disorder because it's not a natural order. And so he wanted to go back to that state of order and at the same time innocence that you can find. But according to many culture, actually, that state of innocence, of purity of innocence, can only be found when we're talking about, you know, young children, because they haven't been corrupted yet. And therefore, this is the choice of showing these young adults, these children, but they're also young adults, as major and minor arcanas. And now what I really appreciate about this deck is that you've got the contrast between the colors of the Oracle deck against the black and white of the tarot deck. And in this case, it's also, to me, a bit of a metaphor between the softness of the colors and the bluntness of the black and white. We do get the message from the black and white tarot, but we also get to soften the blow by the sweetness that comes out of the Wings of Wisdom Oracle. And I really appreciate the fact that we've got the title, we've got the artwork, we've got a couple of keywords, we got an affirmation. I've talked about this Oracle deck before because I actually had the idea about trimming it and making it into some kind of 2 decks. So the upper part, you know, just an Oracle deck with the title, the artwork and the keywords, and then cutting off the affirmation part, rounding up the corner and making it like a second deck of just like a tiny deck of just affirmations. I'm not sure I'm going to do that. I don't really have my professional trimmer with me, obviously, because I'm actually traveling, and I really don't think that they want any kind of trimmers in a plane. But it's something that I might think about doing when I go back to Sydney. But for now, I'm really excited about this combo because I really do believe that it works really well. So this is the Wings of Wisdom Oracle deck, and this is the Zoda Tarot of Innocence by Diego Gabriele, and to me this is the cocktail Bellini. But now let's talk about the Singapore Sling. Now the Singapore Sling was invented by the barman at the Raffles Hotel back in Singapore back in 1915. And it's a mix of everything. It's really symbolizing a balanced melting pot of flavors that reflects the multiculturalism of the city, Singapore itself. So gin, Grand Marnier, cherry liqueur, pineapple, lime, lemon bitters, and club soda. So what I've done, I've actually chosen the Seams Tarot. Seams as in SEAMS Tarot. So Southeast Asia Myths and Stories Tarot by various artists from Southeast Asia. This is a corporation of artists, and it's a fantastic tarot deck. This is the edition from 2022. That say that the head organizer or the chief designer was Rowan Ong, but the art director and artist for a lot of these cards is Leonard Jim Narciso. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing the names correctly. They're here. So included in the 2022 edition, which is this one here, there's there's a tarot deck, but there's also 3 new oracle decks featuring the 8 trigrams of the Balgowlah, sensitively rendered in different Asian visual aesthetics. Let's have a look, because this is an incredibly interesting deck or combination of decks. So just to give you an idea, these 3 are the oracle cards, so with the Balgowlah oracle cards. So we're talking about the Night Gold, the Silent Dream, and the Distant Lights. And we have obviously the tarot deck. Now what I'm going to do, this has been pre-shuffled, so I'm just going to put the, sorry, what am I doing? I'm just gonna put the tarot, two piles of tarot decks on the sides, and then when it comes to the oracle decks, I'm just going to remove the title cards. I'm going to put them together. I'm going to give it a quick shuffle, and then we are going to use these 3 oracle decks as if it were one deck, and we're going to use that deck as an oracle, as a center point for our combination. I really believe that the fact that the Seams Tarot is a combination of artists of Southeast Asia really does, you know, symbolizes very, very well this balanced melting pot we talk about. That is the symbol. It has quickly become the symbol of Singapore. And let me tell you something, it's actually also the strength of Singapore itself, because each and every culture is integrating, but they're also preserving their own tradition. So what I could tell by my short visit, but this is not the first time that I went to Singapore. I actually went there several times, and I had the opportunity to speak to a lot of people that I met over there. And hopefully when I go back, you know, before returning to Australia mid-August, I will possibly have the opportunity to meet up with some members of the Tarot Association of Southeast Asia, which is a fantastic opportunity for me. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to organize a couple of interviews. I'm not entirely sure that I will be able to organize that, but because there's a couple of national festivities, which unfortunately means that you know, people are on holiday, obviously. But let's see if I can do that. It will be fantastic. I really want to show you now the association or the combination of these decks together. They are just absolutely fantastic. I don't know, so there have been a couple of versions before of the Seams Tarot before this one. I do believe that the 2022 is the latest one, but I was doing some research online, and I saw that the previous one had a different cover, a different box. So but some of the cards look very similar to me, so I don't know whether perhaps they did the cooperation with the same artist, and obviously you can recognize the style between the artists throughout different editions, or perhaps not. I don't know. What I can tell you is that they blend in really well together, as you can see that. And it's a really beautiful pair. It's also because we were talking about the fact that you can also see the trigrams. Now, trigrams are not to be confused with hexagrams. Obviously, tri means 3, hexa means 6. But it's the same kind of system of divination that is part of the Chinese culture. And there's a lot, let me tell you, not just because of the Chinese characters that you can find in here, but there's, as I was saying before, this is like an homage. It's a very beautiful way to symbolize the balance between and the integration between the cultures of Southeast Asia that is happening in Singapore. I really, really do appreciate that, and I'm really happy about being here and being able to tell you this by showing you these decks, because I think that for myself, for example, I actually didn't really know. I knew about the existence of this deck, and I know that there's a lot of other regions in the world where you can, for example, find like a union, a collective of artists that come together and they design a tarot deck. but this is amazing because it's not just different artists, it's also different artists with different backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, but the result is all still very cohesive. And I really, really appreciate that, other than the fact that it's actually two beautiful decks. So this is the overall, is called the Sims Tarot, and paired up with the Balgowlah Oracle cards. And this to me is a really beautiful way to show you the combination for the Singapore Sling cocktail. And my next favorite cocktail is the Cosmo Cosmopolitan, which has actually been made famous by Carrie Bradshaw from Sex and the City. It was her favorite cocktail, and to me it's combining a bit of a fashion and a bit of a glamour. So I've decided to go with the Rainbow Moon Tarot by Sam Rook and the Mystic Martians Oracle by Lisa Porter. Now let's have a look. I've actually done this combo a couple of times and I really like the way it looks, but let me see if I can actually zoom in so we can see the cards a little bit better. Yeah, perhaps we can go with that. Let's see. So I really like these two together. It's not just the fact that, you know, the Rainbow Moon Tarot has got some of the most beautiful lime green I've ever seen. Coincidentally, I'm just gonna show you, because the gilding or the edging on the Mystic Martian is exactly the same type of green, which I adore. But it's also the fact that I really believe that there's a playfulness to these cards. You know, there's the playfulness that I actually really like about Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City. It's let's say it's an older, unfortunately now we can actually say that it's an older kind of show. There has been, I think, a new series which is coming out these days. I actually haven't had the opportunity to watch it, and to tell you the truth, I don't really know if I'm going to. The reason being that when I was watching it, how old was I don't remember. I think it was in my early 20s possibly, and you know, I actually felt like I was one of the girls, and you know, I was going through more or less the same issues as they were. I was sharing in many of the feelings that they were talking about, you know, talking about boys, talking about fashion, talking about money problems, talking about work, talking about growing up, and you know, having to face the world of adults that sometimes is very difficult to do. And I felt like there was so much of myself in that show. I recognized myself, and I really felt like there was, you know, this kind of bond that I was making, that I was forming with the characters. And I always, sometimes I liked Carrie more than others, sometimes I liked Samantha, sometimes I liked Charlotte, or you know, Miranda, for example. It depended on whatever I was going through. And I actually remember that it was when my mom passed away, I was actually really taken by the episode in which Miranda's mom passes away too, because I remember that it was so sudden, and she has to go to a funeral, right? And it was in Philadelphia, I think it was, I'm not too sure. And she didn't have a bra, so she forgot to take with her the right bra. And what happened to me was, I also had to, it was very sudden, I also had to, you know, just rush to the city that was in a different country, literally. I had to jump on a plane and then a train and a taxi and everything. In the process, I actually lost my bag because I wasn't thinking, and so I had to buy clothes, and you know, I can laugh about it now because obviously it's been such a long time ago, but it was, and I really felt like I was going through that kind of, you know, feelings that you're buying yourself a bra and you're thinking, I'm buying this bra, or in my case I had to buy a suit to go to the funeral, and I was like, I was going through the same feelings Miranda was going through, and so I really felt connected to her when I was watching that episode. But going back to this combo, I really do believe that we have a lot of really cool conversation going on here. It's lots and lots of fun. Both of them are decks that are meant not to take yourself too seriously. I actually love this full card from the Rainbow Moon because there's a suitcase there, and this is someone who loves to travel, which is definitely me. So I'm actually really enjoying this, and I hope you do too. This is the combination between the Mystic Martian Oracle and the Mystic Martian Oracle and the Rainbow Moon Tarot, and to me it's a combination that really reflects or mirror the way in which I appreciate the Cosmopolitan cocktail. And my next favorite cocktail, and by the way, I'm sorry if you hear the aircon noises in the background. It is 34 degrees and 99% humidity today in Bangkok, and I tried doing the whole filming with no air conditioning, but I just couldn't do it. I just literally was sweating so much that I couldn't even see what I was looking at. So this is one of my favorite cocktails, and it's the Martini. But I have to say something. So being Italian, Martini for me, it's an actual liqueur. So there's an actual liqueur, which is the taste is very similar to the vermouth. It's called Martini. We have Martini Bianco, Martini Rosso, and between the Martini Bianco we have the sec version, so the dry version, which is slightly more bitter, and the slightly sweeter version, which is just the Martini Bianco. Personally, my favorite one is the sweet Martini Bianco, which I drink with on the rocks sometimes with a slice of lemon, but sometimes I also drink it with tonic water as a mixer, which is unheard of. I know, a martini tonic but it doesn't even exist, and I know I'm a bit weird, but I can assure you 1000% it is actually found in Italy. Some people maybe just me, but I do drink that. But the martini cocktail we're talking about is actually made out of gin, vermouth, and an olive or a lemon twist. And this is a very famous cocktail because it's James Bond's favorite cocktail, but as he likes to point out, he wants it shaken, not stirred. And to symbolize that, I actually chosen two really beautiful decks. We're talking about the Nightfall Tarot by Emery Abbott and the Gatsby Love and Wisdom Oracle by Estrella Montiel, PhD. Let's have a look. Now, the Nightfall Tarot is a very recent publication. As a matter of fact, I don't even know if it's sold, if it's distributed by Amazon yet. As always, for all of these decks, whenever I can, I will put the link in the description box below for you to be at least checking them out. The Gatsby Oracle instead, I think it's actually distributed by Tevada. I'm not sure 1000%. I did buy in Kinokuniya, Bangkok, where they actually store Tevada decks, and I think that there's different edging. So mine is, as you can see, this kind of pink purple kind of edging. Now the reason why I've chosen these two is because I really feel like James Bond will have been fitting with these two decks together, particularly because of the atmosphere of that kind of a decadence that you think about whenever you drink martini, and it's a kind of a decadence and luxurious decadence that you can see in the James Bond movies. But let's have a look at how these two pair up together. So first and foremost, obviously there is sorry about that, I think these cards, the gilding, as you can tell, is one of those silvery that leaves, well, I don't know if you can see that, but it leaves a lot of like sparkling powder, silvery powder dust on my fingers, and it does mean that the cards, unless you shuffle them for a while, they do tend to stick together. Now these two, obviously they don't share the same color palette, but I do like to believe that they actually have a very similar kind of artwork. and thanks to that they pair up really well together. Now the Nightfall Tarot, as we were saying before, it is a bit of a darkened kind of interpretation of the RWS. Sorry, this keeps on happening. Whereas, for example, the Gatsby has that kind of soft feel to it, but it's the kind of soft feel that it also points out to that sadness or melancholy again of a past, a sudden, you know, that time in the past where everything was really rich and eccentric, and this was the typical, you know, fashion of that time. Sorry again. Which is really, really interesting to me. And I don't know if you watched the movie. So obviously there is a book, The Great Gatsby, but there's also a movie a few years ago, I think it was, with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I remember it wasn't his best movie, if I may be completely honest, but I always like his movies, you know, regardless of his performance. And I really do believe that he really, the movie itself really spoke well. It really showed you the actual atmosphere of these parties, these people that were literally just living, jumping from one party to another, and it was just that kind of life with you know, nowadays I could not possibly even conceive to live in a life like that, because perhaps it might be fun at the beginning, but you have to admit that after a while you just want to go on with different things that might be even more interesting. So this is the right combination, I think, to symbolize a martini cocktail, because you still have that kind of richness and eccentricity and wealth that is also a bit too much in your face, that is given by the Gatsby Tarot. But on the other hand, you're also given the possibility to look a little bit more on the darker side of things, thanks to the darker interpretation of the RWS given by the Nightfall Tarot. Now, rest assured, this tarot deck, I know that it looks like I'm really struggling to separate the cards. That's because I've only shuffled it once, and apparently that was not enough, because even after shuffling and then putting it back together for a couple of days, I think that the gilding kind of bonded back together. But I don't think it's going to be an issue after you use it a couple of times. What I really want to express with this is the fact that we can still pair up two decks, even when they don't share the same color palette, even when perhaps the artwork is not exactly the same, or even the cultural references are not exactly the same. But because they do complement each other, I really do believe that this is a very good combination. And it's also a very good way to talk about the martini cocktail. So we've seen this is the Gatsby Love and Wisdom Oracle, and this is the Nightfall Tarot, and these are, for me, representing the martini cocktail. And my next favorite cocktail is the very simple gin and tonic. Now, what's in a gin and tonic? If you're a fan of How I Met Your Mother, which is a fantastic show, especially for Gen Xers, let me say, there's a really funny episode in which Ted and Barney take over McLaren's pub for a couple of hours, and because there's a storm and basically Carol has to leave for a while, so there's no one there. It says, you know, what could go wrong? Just you guys take over, just make sure not to break anything. And basically what happens is that the whole marching band of Arizona State University comes over, so there's like heaps of people, and they're all ordering cocktails and beers and stuff, and Ted and Barney are behind the bar and they're literally panicking. And at a certain point, you know, Barney turns towards Ted and he goes, Ted, what's in a gin and tonic? Ted, what's in a gin and tonic? I thought that was, you know, one of those things that it might not be the funniest scene, or you might not even like the show, but the sarcasm and the irony on that line stayed with me for many years, because I when I actually looked into learning how to mix, you know, cocktails, gin and tonic, everyone says that it's the first one you should learn how to make because it's the most basic one, it's the easiest one. Word of advice, no. It's not the easiest one to make because you can actually, there's a lot of ways to screw up a gin and tonic. The parts of the gin and tonic need to be very balanced because gin has a very overwhelming, somehow very powerful kind of taste, and not everyone likes gin, although it is one of the main you know, liquors or alcohol that you can find in many cocktails. But if you mess up on the parts of a gin and tonic, it's not a good it just doesn't have a good taste. So it may be the first and the easiest one to think of because, well, there's gin and there's tonic tonic water, obviously, but it's not, let's say it's not as simple as it sounds. So thinking about that, it came to mind that I could actually use these two decks together. So the Sacred Nature Oracle by Holly Wilmoth and the Silvia Era Tarot by, well, the author is Russell J. Moon and the artist is Onya Khan. Sorry about that if I mispronounce it, but this is the name. And the reason why I've chosen these two decks is because, first of all, the Silvia Era Tarot is a very beautiful black and white tarot deck, so as simple as the gin and tonic. By the way, sorry about the reflection on the light, let me see if this is better, probably is. But there is always a splash of color, and that to me is the symbol, you know, the quintessence of the gin and tonic, because personally I actually like a gin and tonic with a little bit of lemon, and whether that's, you know, that makes you clutch your pearls or not, I don't know, I hope it doesn't, but personally I really like it. So there is simplicity here, but it is also tradition. There is that return to basics that we all need every now and then, and gin and tonic is the kind of cocktail you want whenever you just want to enjoy a cocktail and you don't want to stare at the cocktail list for like half an hour reading all of the ingredients just to ask someone else to give you a hint on what to take because there's just too much of an overwhelming choice. This is the gin and tonic essence to me, the Silvia Era and the Sacred Nature. Now, these two together pair up really well, to the point that honestly, it's one of those things that happens that you actually feel like you're not necessary. I'm just the person flipping the cards. There is so many echoes and resonances between these two decks. The expression on the faces of the characters, the fact that also the Sacred Nature Oracle has got very muted color palette. As a matter of fact, it's a kind of a sepia color palette, whereas this is more of a black and white with a splash of color every now and then. But I can read directionality between these two decks because definitely there is that kind of movement between the two, especially from the tarot towards the oracle. And I absolutely adore the fact that we have a really good association between the images in the oracle, the keyword, and also an association with, for example, in this case, a grapevine. And how amazing that the grapevine is this yellowish kind of color, and you find the only splash of color in the Hermit card is the yellowish kind of color on the lantern. When these things happen between two decks, it's an epiphany for me. It's like, okay, I've done something right here. I've really found the perfect pair, and it's not always the case, and it's not always that easy. And out of 10 pairings, perhaps there's only one that has this kind of significance. But it doesn't matter, it makes it worth it, because all of this to me is worth doing. It's worth doing the research that I've done, it's worth doing the trials between different decks together just to find the two that really work. It's worth everything, it's worth the effort. And what you get out of these two decks, let me tell you, is an absolute pleasure to read with. It's the kind of combination that is very, very deep. and I'm not gonna hide it from you, but there might be, because of the theme of the Silver era, because it is a bit of a simple but also rather darker kind of deck, you can actually use these two for a very intense and powerful shadow work. Also thanks to the Sacred Nature Oracle. Sorry about that, this wasn't supposed to be there, but it's just amazing. I ironically actually even like, in this case, I actually even like the Schiffer cardstock. So this is the Silver era, is being published by Schiffer, and normally I'm not a super fan of the Schiffer cardstock, but because it pairs well with the kind of semi gloss, you see, it still catches the light, but it's not a super glossy kind of deck for the Sacred Nature Oracle. I have actually seen the indie edition of this deck. I don't know whether the cardstock is similar to the mass market. This that I have got is the mass market. Again, thank you, Schiffer, for reminding me that it's you who publishes this. Jeez. So it's, as I said, just a pleasure to work with these two decks together. It's obviously they're two photographic decks, which really helps whenever you're looking for the perfect pair, but it's not just that. As we've seen before, it's everything about them. It's the keywords, it's the colors, it's the style, it's everything. And I am really so happy to be showing you these two together on my channel. I have not seen them paired up together in any other channels before, so you've seen it here first. I hope you like it as much as I did, and actually let me know in the comments below, because I'm really interested to know if you like this kind of pairing or not. So we've talked about the Sacred Nature Oracle and the Silver Era Tarot, and this to me symbolizes the gin and tonic cocktail. And last but not least, the White Russian. Now the White Russian has been for a while one of my favorite cocktails. It's made out of vodka, coffee liqueur, and cream. Now the White Russian was actually made famous by the Big Lebowski's movie, because it was his favorite cocktail. I don't know how many of those he drinks during the movie. There's quite a few, and it's really fun because the White Russian in itself expresses a kind of eccentric, you know, that kind of fashionable and eccentric behavior, and you know, probably also a bit of a sophisticated image that Big Lebowski really does not have. Because it's fun, this contrast, if you're not familiar with the movie, basically he's always wearing a nightgown and a pajama. And his hair is not brushed, and it looks, his beard is like 5 days too long, and he's always, you know, in this kind of, putting himself in these kind of situations in which he keeps on saying, I'm just a dude, man. And he's always bouncing from one odd and whimsical and very weird situation into another, but every time he just always manages to make himself a cocktail, and it's always a White Russian. And I remember that at the time, when I watched the movie, I actually didn't even know what a White Russian was. So I tried it, and I really liked it because it's very sweet and creamy, and for a while, and because it's one of those things that you can actually drink more than one, and you kind of feel it's got a slow burning kind of effect, because you feel the alcohol building up but later. So you have to be really careful not to drink too many. And because of that, I thought about showing you a combo which is a bit of a mix of all that, you know, the sophistication on the one side, but also the oddity and the odd combination between the sophistication and the pajama and the nightgown on the other hand, and the very weird and odd situation represented in the movie. And so I've chosen the Lost Code of Tarot, the limited edition, and the Maléfique Lenormand, which is, both of them are very recent acquisitions. This was a super duper lucky find at the Asia bookstore in Siam Paragon in Bangkok. and this one is, I think, readily available. If not, it might be out of stock temporarily, but in any case, this is out of print. Is very hard to find. It's a very limited edition by Lo Scarabeo, and it's by the same author, or at least one of the authors is Andrea Aste, which is also you know, the illustrator of the Tarot of Light and Shadow, and also the creator and illustrator of the Book of Shadow and Alchemist Story, which was a Kickstarter from earlier this year or late last year. Sorry, I don't exactly remember that. In any case, you'll see the art style and you'll definitely remember if you're familiar with this author. This is the same author as the Tarot Nuage. In any case, I will put the links in the description box below, but just a fair warning, this is out of print, very hard to find. Honestly, I was super lucky to find it there for a normal price, because they you know, they obviously cannot, it's a bookstore, they cannot mark up the price. It is the price that it was originally published with. So this is the Lost Code of Tarot. Let's have a look at these two pairing up together. So let's have a look at how these two pair up together. And let me say that even the color of the Lost Code of Tarot actually reminds me of the White Russian, because what happens is that you're supposed to pour the coffee in first. I mean, you have the vodka and the coffee in first, and then you're supposed to pour the cream. So you have to use, obviously, a very special glass. And what happens is that because of the difference in density and the difference in weight, you've got the cream, which is slowly dripping on the side. You can actually tell from the side of the glass that is slowly dripping into the mix of the coffee and the vodka. And then if you just, you know, in some cases people likes to stir it, and you will see this kind of cafe latte kind of color, because that's exactly what it is at the end of the day. I really like these two together. Now, generally speaking, I would actually not pair a Lenormand with a tarot, because I tend to read Lenormand as a sentence, so only Lenormand cards, you know, perhaps a 3 cards pool or a 5 cards pool or a 7 or the Grand Tableau, or you know, whatever feels like it. But not generally speaking, I don't use it as an oracle, but I do believe that in some cases you can actually do that. And there's a few things that I look for, you know, and in this case, let's have a look. It's definitely because of the art style that is very, reminds me a lot, you know, it's very reminiscent of the Lost Code Tarot. Obviously, there's a limited color palette also on the Maléfique Lenormand, which is obviously reflected in the Lost Code Tarot. There's that kind of use of emptiness in the Lenormand deck, and the use of emptiness in the tarot deck as well. I really do believe that these two have a very similar kind of vibe. They have a very similar kind of energy. As you can tell, the Lost Code Tarot has pipish, or rather pip minors. However, I have to say that I do not mind these pips at all, because they're actually not lazy pips. They're really beautiful pips. Not illustrated, but that doesn't change a thing. I mean, you can really take your time in illustrated pips in a manner. Like in this case, for example, there's a lot of work here. It's not just, you know, 7 baton or 7 wands thrown in there and that's it. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of mastery that goes into creating these decks. And I absolutely love the majors. It's a very special deck. The concept behind it is that, you know, the creator has found the origin of a tarot, of a lost code of tarot. And, you know, in this deck, you'll find a lot of symbolism that are recreating that sense of a tradition that has been rediscovered. This is one of the most colorful cards, by the way, of the Lenormand, the Maléfique Lenormand, and I'm happy that it's the stars. card that has so much colors in it. So let me know what you think, because obviously nothing is set in stone. I can change my mind, even myself, but I do believe, looking at them, I really believe that they do have this kind of conversation. It's a nice conversation that they have together. There's this kind of, you know, thing going on between them. They definitely bond on something, and it's a feeling, it's a vibe, it's an energy, it's everything that you need and you look for whenever you try to decide and try to pick a couple of decks to pair up together. So this is again the Malefic Lenormand paired up with the Lost Code of Tarot. This is the limited edition, and this to me symbolizes the White Russian cocktail. Now, as I said before, this was the last one, so thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. And as I said at the beginning, if you feel like there's many other cocktails that we can explore together, feel free to pick up this VR. I would love to watch your choices. I would love to talk about it in the comments below. I'm really into using tarot as a means of fun and communication and bonding in a tarot community, and not just for divination, not just for introspection, not just to tap into your own intuition, but also because we live in the world and we need to exploit this kind of link that can really unite and can bring people together. Last night, just to give you an example, I was walking back actually from a night food market in the north eastern part of Bangkok, and I was walking after kilometers and kilometers, and I was really exhausted. At a certain point, it was nighttime, and I saw this guy, and he was sitting on the side of a road, and I was sitting on a tiny place, and he had a tiny table in front of him, and there was a lady sitting in front, and I thought to myself, there's something going on here, let me see what's going on. And he just took out a tarot deck and he started reading, and that brought me so much joy, because I could not communicate with them because they only speak Thai. Unfortunately, I tried to, and I was pointing at myself and say tarot. They only understood the word tarot, obviously, but I really love this. I love the fact that tarot is still going strong. It's still something that brings people together. It's still something that people seek out because they want that kind of connection and they want to know something about their lives. So please join my channel. There's nothing that will make me happier, seriously. Even by traveling, I'm actually honored to show you all of these videos, all of these decks that I'm finding in different places in Southeast Asia. And I have launched this series which is called Tarot on Tour, where I've shown you Sydney. First of all, because this is where it all started, this is where I live, and then I think I've already posted the episode on Singapore. I'm working on the episode from Bangkok, and there will be more to come. So stay tuned, more to come. Have a great day.